he be going to work?
I had this party after Heezy was off the hook.
What the heck does that mean?
Hello everybody, my name is Oluwakayode Olatunji, and in this video we're going to be talking about how Black English affects African Americans in education. So basically, in order to answer the question, we'll be looking into the origin of Black English and seeing how racism is rooted in Black English. We'll also be looking into terms like code switching and code meshing and seeing how that affects the identity of Black Americans. As many of you know, Black English, or African American Vernacular English, AAVE, originated from slaves. They started speaking AAVE because it was illegal for them to be taught to read or write, so they came up with their own style of English, which is known as AAVE. One thing I would like to point out is Black English was formed out of the actions of white slave owners towards African American slaves. So you guys can see that racism was an ingredient in the formulation of Black English. Racism has been rooted in the history of AAVE since day one, just so you guys know that. As you may have seen in the previous video, Jim Crow laws weren't funny, they weren't a joke. Black people actually suffered for things like this. It just sounds crazy, honestly. But in my opinion, Jim Crow laws started the failure of African Americans in education. Because when you segregate black kids and white kids into different schools, you're basically saying the white kids can have good education, good teachers, good facilities, and black kids are just left to suffer. Because that's how I see it. Black English being deemed as unprofessional made it difficult for black folks to land better jobs. Many companies and institutions weren't willing to take black people in because they saw them as uneducated and ghetto just off hearing them speak. They also had a hard time doing well in school after the segregation because most of the white kids had better education during the segregation, which ultimately gave them the edge when the dust settled. A lot of black kids ditched school to find other means to survive and got involved with gangs and the streets. This connects to my next point on why the communities and the environment black people grew up in strongly influenced their paths in life. You see, one of the main problems black people face is they grow up in neighborhoods where you don't see a lot of role models or a lot of people who are ambitious. You just see most people trying to survive, going to easy paid jobs, not striving getting like a degree or doing something like reasonable, honestly. Like that's why I feel like the black community has like problems in education, because they're like around gangsters, people who do drugs and all that, and they see that on their everyday day to day life. So I feel like they're like more drawn into that sort of life than going to school and like, getting a degree.
But we want to talk about this book, Code Meshing, Code Switching. What do those two things mean, and which one do you prefer?
I prefer code meshing.
Okay, tell us, give us a definition and then tell us why.
Code switching means in educational context using one language or dialect in one context. So using standard English at school and at work, and using African American English, for instance, with friends and family. That's switching according to context. I prefer code meshing, bringing those two together, bringing standard English at home with friends and families, but using African American English as well, and using African American English and standard English in school and in professional context.
Even though it may not be widely accepted to be practicing code meshing, you still think that it's one way to overcome that one of the hurdles existing still in racism, that this is an actual practice of racism, not to allow and embrace code meshing. Is
That's
that
right.
correct? Yeah.
Yes, I think code meshing will break down one of those last barriers of racism.
I've always wondered why we humans code switch, but come to think of it, I realize code switching is an essential part of our everyday interactions. I assume a lot of us code switch effortlessly without even knowing it. I'll use myself as an example here. Being an immigrant, I code switch a lot when I'm around my regular Caucasian American friends, my African friends, and my African American friends as well. I believe the reason I code switch is that I just want to fit in with every group. So I try my best to be relatable so as not to miss out on the fun. I honestly think code switching should be abolished because it just makes people lose their identities. People don't even know who they really are anymore because they are so two-faced. They can't speak the way they speak at home, at work, because they're not going to be accepted. That that doesn't sit right with me, honestly. I strongly believe that Black English should be treated like a normal language and shouldn't be thought of or seen as unprofessional and erratic. The world should move on from setting standards on how everyone should look like, act like, or speak like. We shouldn't have to switch up every time we go to a grocery store or whenever we're on the phone with our friends. We should all be encouraged to be our genuine self and care less about what people think we should be. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. That's been all for me. See you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.